Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, host of Vancouver Island Time and also co-host of the Victoria Real Estate Show with my friend.
Hey everybody, with me, Andrew Plank with RoyalLepage. So good to be here yet again. Another week has gone past, and wow, it's getting nice. The weather's changing. It was amazing rainbow last week that a lot of people were reporting. I missed it, but was at a friend's 50th and inside listening to some nice music. But yeah, how's your week been, Jane?
Good. I'm finding things are really changing, which
Yeah.
is why I edited the PowerPoint a bit today just to reflect that. But so I had a second listing in the same building, and the first one we got 6 offers, and the
When was the
unconditional
first one,
one.
Jane?
When was the first one? 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
And
So you okay?
sorry.
And you're finding a big difference.
Yeah. Sorry. You know what? It was grad weekend and I'm so tired.
Yeah,
I'm like,
congratulations.
anyway,
Here.
so we got no
Doing a grad.
conditions and sold. And it went 50 over. And then we got a second listing that we went live last week. And we got 4 offers and three or 4 offers. 4 offers, and then we got an accepted offer and a backup, both with conditions. So people are negotiating with conditions in now, which I think is smart.
People are cautious. You know, it's so. I was thinking about this. Just it's so interesting how quickly things can change, how things can feel like they're going to be. There's a lot of wind in the sails, and there seems like a lot of wind still to come, and then suddenly there's some news articles, there's some changes, there's some scares or some shocks to the system, and the wind kind of disappears. I don't know, there's a lot going on. The stock market's tanking today apparently, so that's good news, and a lot of concerns around interest rates. So that's a big
right. And we talked about those last week, and just the expectation of a couple more hikes this year.
Yeah. And
really, so cash is going to be king.
Cash will be king, and there's going to be a little bit more power in that. But what we're talking, yes, exactly. One of the reasons I think we're talking today about new construction is because with single family homes or with resale properties, whether that's single family or condo or townhouse or lots, if you're buying and closing on that fairly quickly, you've got the assurance and security of knowing, you line up your financing, you figure out your money and do your transaction, and it's a done deal. But with a longer closing with new construction where there's maybe not even a hole in the ground, they're just selling an idea, you could be 2 or 3 years away, and it's usually a year or 2 away, and you're pretty far off. And especially in this kind of changing environment where some people are a little insecure, unsure, it's harder to make a choice.
So yeah, it's interesting because I have buyers who've been looking at new construction, and there was nothing for sale a couple months ago, and so they're really interested in one development, and anyway, the developer hasn't released a disclosure, hasn't released, and so now we're at a point where I'm telling them, you know what, just wait, don't buy in there yet. Let's look at new construction because they want to move sooner than later. And so then all of a sudden the pressure's off of them. So, and now they're seeing what the price of condos is listing and selling at, and they're seeing the cooling off. And so they're deciding, okay. So the secret for listing right now, folks, is don't list too high.
Don't list too high. No, you need to be really in tune with the market and listen to your realtor and actually listen to your, look at the stats and look at what's happening and think about that. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking, go ahead, Jane.
Well, I mean, that's a nice segue into looking at the stats.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's look at the stats and we'll talk more new construction. We'll be right back with more new construction soon.
Oh, Andrew, I love you. Okay, we're looking at the stats and new construction up to June 13th. And what I thought I'd do is just do a comparable of week to week so you could see what was going on.
Right.
So last week we had 306 new listings. This week we have 323.
Mhm.
Want to do the next one?
Okay, so in terms of pending properties, we had 188 properties go pending last week versus 140 this week. So, less.
Yeah. And the ratio is interesting to me.
Yeah,
Um
it's growing
the yeah,
wider.
so like we're down to 50%. Price decreases were 111 last week. This week there are 136, and price increases were up from 1 to 7. Go ahead.
Back on market's kind of a wash, and that's kind of uh, it's just a strategy some agents will use from time to time where there's something that was off market for a legitimate reason. But 417 went unconditional last week versus 93, but that's just a factor in terms of, people tend to close around the beginning of the month. So that number, I wouldn't really put a lot of, it doesn't have a lot of weight there. 43 properties expired last week, unsold versus 22 this last week. 4 withdrawn, 2 withdrawn again, and it's kind of a wash. I want to go back to something though, Jane. Like, wouldn't you say a lot of people have been sort of waiting to list? I found that this year it was kind of a late spring market in terms of people listing. So when we see new inventory and a wash of new inventory coming in, that's also to be expected seasonally.
Yes, I agree. So, but normally it peaks in May, not June.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm seeing it. It seems early. It seems late to me. And
yeah.
also, uh, people they overthink these things. Just get your house on
What's
the
that?
market. They overthink.
Right. Yeah.
That
Well,
was
so the advice generally for buyers and sellers is, if and when you're ready, now's the best time. I mean, unless there's
yeah.
some real, there are lots of small things to consider. Is it a long weekend coming up? Is it, there's other factors to consider, but overall, in the general scheme of things, like especially for buyers, it's really hard to get into position of being able to buy, especially for first-time buyers. If you can do that, if the market conditions are correct for that, it's a good time to step in and buy that home. If property values change a little bit for the positive or negative, you're thinking long term here. So it might be that they change for the negative in the future, and you could have bought for cheaper in the future, but maybe the ability, your qualification is has changed as well. Maybe you're not going to get the same kind of rate to qualify and so forth. So um, I find there's a small window for people when they're
Well, I
new buyers.
agree regarding the rate, like especially with the interest rate changing. If you can get in and buy right now, buy.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, this
Thanks
is
for doing
the
the side-by-side comparison. Okay, yeah, so now we've got June, we've got the real estate board stats. Yeah, why don't you take the top two, and I'll take the last one.
okay. Okay, so we're comparing June of this year compared to June of last year. So, as of June 6th last year, or this month, there were 111 sales last year. Now oh my God,
Do you want me to help you out here?
111 sales last week, and now we're going up to 234. So that's good. That's compared to
Yeah,
942 in June of 2021. And then new listings. Last week we were up to 224 for the total month. This year we're up in June to 547. That's compared to 1,208. So I would say we're on par to where we're going to be, at least for last year. Go ahead.
yeah. So it looks like we're halfway through the month, double that 547. We're about 1,100 sales. That's comparable with 1,208 from last year. Or sorry, that's new listings. Pardon me. And then sales wise, though, we're very, we're like, almost a quarter, a little over a quarter. So back to active listings. in 2021, June 2021, we had 1,375 active listings when they took that measure. As of last week, we had 1,789, and we've bumped that up now this week to 1,878. So we're definitely on a rise in terms of inventory. We're still low in terms of truly, regular market active inventory. We still are low, but we're definitely moving up quickly to more inventory and more selection.
Yeah, so definitely buyer's market in my mind.
Yeah, and I find
All
when
right.
buyers have more selection, they slow down and they pause and they, wait, because they let's see what else is around the corner.
Karen Denise Mice says, I need a coffee. Thank you. I'm working on that. And we all have to remember 2020 and 2021 were unusual years in terms of sales. Agreed, Karen. And also, we also have to remember, that we're looking here year to year over the past 2 years. We're starting to now get to what I consider to be a normal market. What do you think?
Well, I don't think the market's normal right now because we're when you look at stats, the numbers might look like normal, but we're also looking at these graphs where things are moving and changing pretty rapidly. So I'm not sure what the market's still quite frothy, I would say, in terms of like where is it going to go and unpredictable. Frothy is the wrong word, but unpredictable.
Love it. Okay, I'm going to see if I can share my questions. If not, you know what? I'm going to put them in the chat. So maybe that's a good idea anyway.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
here are the questions that we're going to talk about today. There we go. Let's just get it out there. Okay. We're having an interesting day today.
Well, as you said, you had graduation weekend, so
it's interesting. 20 years. But anyway, let's just not get
real
in
estate
there.
doesn't
Okay,
phase
so
you, but a graduation weekend has you completely.
The end of an era.
Yeah.
Okay. What is a disclosure statement?
Can you bring that up into the that's in this can you bring that up into our
the comments
screen? I know. Can we pop it on the screen as well so people can see it as well? Is that possible?
Let me see. Okay. Yes, I can.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay. Hold on a second. Share. Got it?
I see. Okay. Right. That also works, I suppose. It'll do.
We got the full thing now?
I was doing this, but you can get rid of that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, you guys. It's one of those days.
So what's a disclosure statement? Financing. When do payments start? What happens between purchase and possession? Can you get out of your offer? If so, when? And what is an assignment? And what is a deficiency walkthrough? We're missing some. I won't talk about proofreading. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Disclosure statement. First one. So this is kind of, imagine a dating profile on a dating app where you want to know the history of somebody. So you want to know what else have they built? What standard do they build to? You are able to then look at the kind of the history of the builder. You look at what the overall design is going to be of the complex. You're going to be looking at all the finishings in there. It basically gives you the big picture overview, wouldn't you say?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't usually see the building history or the dating history there in the disclosure statement, but I would think it's more like a prenup or something. It's like here's what you're going to expect. Here's what you can expect from this marriage. What it really is, a disclosure statement. I mean, it's many things. And it's a requirement from the market developer, marketer. Yeah, superintendent of real estate, the REDMA, Real Estate Development Marketing Act. requirement. So all developers, if they're going to put something out for sale, and especially if they haven't even broken ground yet, they need to put out this developer's disclosure statement stating exactly what it is they're going to be building. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Karen. Yes, we are.
We should just re-record this whole thing. Okay. They do give you history. Like if that person, the person constructing the building has built before, they usually list what they've built before and what kind of, who are you getting involved with here? And this is important
to know
because
that.
one of the last questions that Andrew asked to add today was, what's the difference between buying from somebody who's built this much and somebody who's built this much? And the difference is really the process and the product.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there's a lot of developers out there that are just sort of first-time developers, and you don't know you don't know that they're proven history, and they may say that they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and have every intention of doing it. They just don't have the connections and the qualifications to put together what they're saying, and the pockets. You need some deep pockets to do development, generally speaking.
Okay, and also in the disclosure statement, they're going to be talking about the basic rules and stuff that they're going to have regarding rentals and all of that. And also whether or not they're going to allow pets, how many pets, all the basic rules that they're going to sort of change. There's standard real estate rules, and then they're going to have what's in the disclosure.
Whether there's finding some change. A disclosure statement is really a framework of, this is what they're going to be building, and it contains the legal, it contains the, if it's a strata, it'll contain the strata plan, it's going to contain construction quality and maybe some information about the color schemes and so forth, what's included, what's not included. And it's a paper version of what you're going to be buying in reality. And you're expected to be able to rely on that.
Yeah. So when you're often there's two types of people. One type of person loves new construction because they're able to determine what they want as the finishings. So they may have two different types of finishing, light versus dark. And other people cannot envision what the end product is going to be. And so they just cannot buy new construction because they just can't see where it's going to go. When you say?
I've never categorized people into just those two categories out there. Oh, that's a person who, but no. Sorry, I'm just being.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
But it's no.
When you use a can opener,
some people can really visualize from this, and they also trust their imagination on it, and other people just can't really get their head around this black and white. From this black and white paper will come this fully grown constructed building. So the question comes down to how comfortable are you with ambiguity and risk. The disclosure statement is supposed to make things that are very unambiguous, but it's still, there's a lot of room for some movement, and even the disclosure statement incorporates into it room for movement in terms of, like, you're buying a place and they're selling it as 900 square feet. If it's a little condo, for example, and there will be language in the disclosure statement that says, you're going to accept the place as long as there's let's say within 10% difference in that. There could be some differences if you get in there and measure it and it's not exactly 900. So you have to be okay with some of that ambiguity. But
and this comes into play actually later on when people are because you have the strata plan filed. You also know where your parking spot's going to be usually, or you can pick a parking spot, or where your storage is going to be, but you don't physically see that. So often developers have a showroom, and I noticed during COVID the last 2 years there weren't showrooms. It was all virtual. So this is it's important to read this.
Yeah, and so the takeaway here is that this is a piece of paper. This is a key piece in new construction. There's been talk. There's the ability to rescind based on if you make an offer on a place because it's been sold. You go into the sales center and you get sold on this great idea of this product, and then you go home and you start to think about it, and you've already signed acceptance on this, there is rules in place that allow you 7 days to rescind um, after you've received that property disclosure statement. It's a very, very key and important document. And by the way, don't walk into that sales center on your own. Help us and help us help you by asking us to introduce you to this development. And that helps us to be along for the ride and give you the advice that is really important in these very, very, as we talked about, ambiguous kind of purchases.
Yeah, and I would say the biggest advice we can give you, is what's the value of what you're buying compared to what else
Mhm.
is out there, but also in terms of finishings, what you should and shouldn't invest in. So if somebody tells you right now, do you want surround sound? No. Do you want to change your flooring from this to that? Maybe. Like we can tell you
Personal
what's
preference.
preferable. We're working with buyers
Yeah.
all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and also,
Okay.
yeah, and are you familiar with this builder? And what have they built in before? Can we perhaps take you through some of their past buildings so you can actually have a view of some of those as well? These are all really helpful, good things. So let's move on from property disclosures. I think there's a lot to talk about those, and just trust that, if we're working with you, we're gonna help you through those. Um,
Okay, so so financing, you're gonna get financed for now at the current rate. I know RBC does some special financing for new construction and they do what's called a rate hold, but I don't actually fully understand how they do it. But essentially, you don't get like when they do a rate hold, it doesn't mean you get like 2.5% now, and 2 years from now, you still get 2.5%. It's a relative rate hold. But you
oh, is it?
start
Okay.
payments. You
I'm
put
not sure.
down.
I think we should tell people to check with, and we've got connections for the RBC mortgage brokers, but my understanding was you can get the rate hold now for the future. It's higher though. You're going to pay a higher. You're going to get a guaranteed rate, but it's going to be higher than current rates. But it's going to be a guaranteed rate that is held for even 2 years down the road if your construction is done. Whereas for most lenders, good luck getting a rate hold beyond 3 months. And that's the scary thing for folks where they've agreed to buy a place, rates are currently this. They're approved based on that. And this is the really scary piece. They're
Yeah,
approved based on that. But if rates go up to a point beyond what they're actually approved for, when it comes time to just before completion and they have to go back and get reapproved because it's 2 years has moved on, they may not get approved. And so what happens then? Trouble.
right. So, the other thing is just understanding that you don't start payments. You do put your down payment down. So to be an initial down payment, usually of 10% and potentially an increase to 15%. So after you go unconditional, another 5% is down.
These
And
things can be
then
negotiable too.
pardon?
They can be
They can be
negotiable depending on
negotiable.
the developer. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the thing to realize is developers need to sell a certain amount of units in order to get their financing for their construction
Mhm.
loan. So they're not going to be flexible at the beginning about that sort of thing. I don't think they'll be more flexible, I think, in the middle. And then at the end, so people always ask, like, when is the best time to buy new construction? Just buy it now, because I've had I've had people go to buy new construction and they're like, I'm going to think about it. And then the developer increases the price. And you're like, well, this was, $15,000 less yesterday. Yeah, too bad.
Yeah.
And
Or
you can't
25,000 or
negotiate.
more. Yeah. They're always, and it's funny, I was talking to a colleague about this because I was watching this development go up in price and up in price and up in price. And developers are always like, they want to maximize their profit and they're always testing the waters. They start getting sales at a certain price. They're going to raise to see if they can continue to get sales. But the other really key piece here, it's not only that with time moving on, maybe prices are going up, but also the selection is going down. The best properties are going to sell sooner. And then lastly, the developer is hoping to get their sort of firm approval from the lender for their development. And so some of the first offerings are generally the best pricing. Um, there may be less negotiation in terms of some of those side pieces, but you're going to probably find the best pricing and the best selection once they've got those sales and they've got this project sort of funded and guaranteed, they're going to be working to maximize their profit at that point.
Another reason to work with a realtor too is that we can get you a pricing sheet, which will show you everything that's for sale. What's on MLS may just be what's called the loss leader, which will be the least expensive property. And then we can show you, like, let's say there's 80 units. We can show you all 80. We're not, to me, I'm not really talking about housing. I'm more talking about condos.
Yeah, we have been talking more condo in general here. And of course, single family construction is different, but also similar. There will, so there is that. I want to go back to the question though, because I had this question actually from a client recently as well. You know, when do I start paying for this new construction? I thought I'd start paying after my offer was accepted, but you don't own the place. You don't own the place yet. You don't start paying until you actually have it, you know, put into your name and you own it. So you're putting your deposit down, but beyond that, there's no payments for quite some time.
Right. So what you would start paying. So the balance of whatever your mortgage is due will happen upon completion. So that's when you're going to be getting possession of the property. So about a month ahead of time, you're going to get a notice from the developer saying, "Hey, we're completing in a month." You're then going to, well, by then you will, I just also want to say, actually, regarding finishing, you're going to have more choice at the beginning than you will at the end, because the further they're along, they will have ordered stuff. Then you're going to have your notification, and then you're going to have your deficiency walkthrough.
In terms of the choices, when it comes to the development, some developments actually provide no choice because they just, their business model is, you know, it's the McDonald's business model. You're gonna, you know, get something that's built, you know, fairly consistent, but we're doing it our way because we can do it quickly. The minute you start doing more custom, it's going to increase their amount of time and their amount of the fiddly bits that they have to interact with and deal with everyone in that construction. When you've got 30, 40, 50 units, all each individually wanting their own stuff, it can get really overwhelming for a developer. So they will put quite hard brakes on some of these things, especially the further along you go.
Right. So generally, it's just a choice of one or two.
Yeah.
And it's general. And there's like, and if you want to do a change, like improve the flooring or whatever, you're going to have to pay a fee for that or do a change. And you have to sometimes do an amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. I had clients once wanting to bring. This was on
back to the mortgage broker and then get reapproved as well, by the way.
Right, if you're changing prices and so forth, you know. I had a client once, they were from Europe and they were bringing over, they contacted me and we started working together, but they said, we're bringing our kitchen with us because, yeah, from Europe, they were shipping it over because they didn't understand at the time that, you know, in Europe, in some countries in Europe, when you buy and sell real estate, you have to bring your own kitchen.
So like the cupboards?
So they had these very expensive cabinets and they wanted to have them installed. We ended up finding them a new construction home. And the developer said, you know, we can't install these because they would void the warranty, which we're going to be talking about warranty in a moment. We wouldn't be able to give you the 2510 warranty. There's no way we can do this. So in the end, they were able to put them into their garage, these beautiful cabinets, and into their laundry room. But they weren't able to do, you know, a new kitchen cabinet with these cabinets that they brought with them. So it's funny what people sort of assume or know are coming from different places. But new construction has a lot of limits on what's possible as well.
I do get asked a lot for new construction, like, what about all the appliances and stuff like that? So those generally come with it. And again, you can upgrade if you want. And they show you all the packages. They also show you all the, well, depending on the developer, they'll show you all the taps and pulls on the cupboards and stuff like that.
Yeah. Sometimes there'll be sometimes there's a credit with like Trail Appliances, and they don't really care what you put in. It's just they've got a certain amount allocated for it, and if you want to upgrade from there, you just go and talk to the salespeople there and say, I want this and this and this. But it still has to fit in the place, and it can actually add. So some developers don't allow even a change in their appliance package. Okay, Jane, yeah, let's move on here.
Okay, so you can get out of your offer, no problem, within a week of writing. Also, if there's a major change to the disclosure statement and they file an amendment, at that point you can change things up and get out. If
If it's
there
a really
isn't a major,
fundamental change, minor changes may not though. So
yeah.
just a change to the disclosure statement doesn't give you the ability to walk away from your contract, but a really significant change that changes the form of what you're purchasing obviously gives you, I believe it starts that 7-day right of rescission again.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then if you do want to get out, if let's say you don't have that opportunity, but you do want to get out, you can do what's called an assignment. So an assignment is basically what they used to call shadow flipping, where this time you have to do it with the permission of the developer, and the developer may charge you a fee. It can be anywhere from 1% up, or there's recently a development where it's just $2,500, which is really good.
There was a time when every contract in real estate was assignable, and there was a time too, especially we were seeing this in Vancouver, where people were buying pre-sales, and then when it came time to complete, they were flipping them out for hundreds of thousands or thousands of dollars more. But they were allowed to do that, and then developers got live to this and started adding clauses into the contract saying, no, you can't assign without my permission. So they're not all assignable. You'll need developer permission from any, or they will say it's permissible, but you're going to have to give us a piece of the action.
So if they do resell and it sells for a higher price, the seller actually is entitled to the lift in the sale price. I wonder if they're entitled the other way too. If you buy for less.
When you say the seller, you're talking about the developer or
The developer, yeah.
So that's what you've got to watch the developer's disclosure statement, read the contract to understand what each of these might be. But yeah, they might be asking for a portion of that lift. And of course, if there's a lessening, they're going to just hold you accountable for what you've agreed to pay.
And you also have to get permission whether or not it can be on MLS, or whether or not you can put any signage up. Often you cannot.
Sometimes it's cheaper just to go ahead and, if you can't get financing, this is where you got to go to the developer and have a talk with them. But if you can get financing and they're asking for a big chunk of the assignment, it might be cheaper just to complete on the property and resell it yourself. Generally cheaper to assign it, but.
And this is why developers like big deposits.
Yes. Yeah, they want you to be held accountable. Okay, next question.
Okay, deficiency walkthrough.
Right,
deficiency
these are fun.
Walkthrough. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I'm starting to see, and I was just out to the Belmont residences and for a couple of deficiency walkthroughs, and developers are now hiring third parties to work for them to do the deficiency walkthroughs. So a deficiency walkthrough is, there is a warranty on these new constructions, right? The 2510 warranty, which we'll be talking about. It's important that you as the buyer are going through this property in advance, making sure that they've done what they're going to do in the contract, making sure that the finish is okay. So you'll generally take, some time there to look through and look at the paint quality, looking for deficiencies in paint quality, problems or errors in the construction, and noting those so that the developer has an opportunity to address those. And that is reported to the warranty holder as well.
Yeah, you have to sign a document upon the deficiency walkthrough, and then generally that's done about 10 to 15 days ahead of time. And then there is a holdback if that stuff isn't done, and then you can still move in if it doesn't affect the occupancy. So you're going to make an offer saying that you want occupancy permit before the money goes through, because you won't get financing. You want to do your deficiency walkthrough, and then you have two types of holdbacks. So there's a holdback for a strata, which I believe is at 10%. And then there's a holdback also for any deficiencies. So what you and the developer do is come to an agreement on what the price of those are. And then your lawyer as a buyer will hold back your holdback in trust, and then it'll be paid out once proof that this is done. And
So
there'll be a
time,
timeline to get it done.
yeah, holdbacks need to be negotiated. They don't always exist, and especially if you're dealing with new construction, single developer doing a single family home and stuff. But it's important to throw some language in there if you can around, and I say if you can because not all developers are very negotiable, but it's definitely an important conversation to have. And yeah, these deficiencies have a value, and when it comes time for the bank to give the funds to the developer, you can instruct the lawyers to hold some of those funds back. Again, if it's negotiated, and then those funds are released after the problems are addressed. If it's looking like things aren't going to be dealt with. And then as an aside, this is another thing, a deficiency holdback could be done on a resale home where there's a lot of garbage and junk in the yard, and you want to ensure that the seller takes care of it. So you negotiate a holdback that says you're going to hold back 10,000 or 2,000 or whatever, and it's only released once the job is done. And if it's not done at closing, you have the ability to go take that money and use it to, not all of it, but what's required to take care of that problem, and then the rest gets released back to the developer or the owner in that case.
So the holdback is held in trust at the lawyer's office for 55 days. And I did see 7%, but I actually can't see that in the BC laws right now about the exact holdback is. Okay. And then, so the 2, 5, and 10 warranty. So that goes into effect when you sign off and you've done you've gotten occupancy. That's the date that it starts. This can be a bit iffy because sometimes, like when the market's slow, you may get occupancy 2 years after.
I have a tale. Hang on. Somebody's coming to say hi.
Hi. Okay. So, for instance, I had clients who were buying a house and they bought it 2 years after it actually being built and the occupancy granted. And so the builder said, we'll give you 2 years still, but just understand that things like the hot water tank are 2 years old. And so even though it hasn't really been used, you've got 2 years gone on it. So it can be a bit of a problem in a fast market. It doesn't, like the timing doesn't matter, but the first 2 years are comprehensive. So it's a good idea to diarize about 18 months in that you want to do this deficiency walkthrough. And if you're in a strata, coordinate with everybody so that you can start going around with tape. You get the developer in. Usually it's like nail pops and stuff like that. And then you make an appointment and get it done before the 2 years.
So again, the 2, 5, 10 warranty, and I apologize because I don't remember the exacts on this, but it's not a 10-year warranty that's comprehensive. The reason they call it a 2, 5, 10 warranty is, there are stages to it. And I think the first 2 years are on, building and structure, walls and nail pops and so forth. And then the 5 is for like, more systems in the building and stuff. And then 10 is structure. So
here, I got it.
And there's also there's a 6-month part to it. It's really like, there's a 6-month part where everything's kind of covered. And then there's a year where there's some less coverage. They call it 2, 5, 10, but you've got to read the warranty and understand what's covered.
Yeah. Okay. And then the final question is here, builder versus owner built homes. So previously, anybody could build a home and sell it. And that happened a lot at Bear Mountain. These people just decided they were going to become builders. And then that changed when they found that the level of quality for homeowner built homes was different than builder built homes. And so they started to require these people to be qualified, and they had to take courses and stuff like that to protect the consumer. So that being said, you really do have to look into the history of that builder. And I do recommend going to other sites where they've done work. And often what they can do is actually give you references for people who've
Yeah.
worked with them.
There's kind of two kinds of builders. There's people who decide to be a builder. Cats destroying things. People who decide that they're going to be a builder and build it themselves, and there's people who go and get permits and approvals and hire a contractor and build it for themselves, but then decide to sell it, and it's sold kind of pretty much as new or at new, and that's an owner builder, and it's been built for the owner themselves. It doesn't fall under the the Warranty Act and so forth. So you've got to be careful when buying from this type of builder. There's, in fact, there's a rule. I think you can't even sell a home like that within a year of it being built. And yet some people will try. So you've got to watch this piece.
Yeah, it has to do with tax implications and stuff like that.
Well, and quality of construction and the fact that there's no warranty. So
yeah,
those are big. We finished that list, but I have one thing I wanted to add, which was about like what happens if there is a delay. We were already talking about this earlier, especially in this rising interest rate environment. What happens if there's a delay in construction, and what are the developers, rights and so on. So I've got here a screenshot of some language from a contract from one of my clients. This is a contract from a real purchase contract. Language from real purchase contract. It says here is if the vendor is delayed from completing construction of the strata lot as a result of, now these are the reasonable pieces: earthquake, flood, or other act of God, fire, explosion, terrorism, or accident whatsoever caused, act of government authority, strike, lockout. Now this is where it gets interesting: inability to obtain or delay in obtaining labor, supplies, materials, or equipment, delay or failure by carriers or contractors, breakage or other casualty, climatic condition, interference of the purchaser, or any other event of any nature whatsoever beyond the reasonable control of the vendor. So this is pretty much a blank slate, isn't it? Then the vendor may, at its option, exercisably by written notice to the purchaser, in addition to any extension pursuant, blah, 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 essentially saying they can choose to extend the closing date, okay? And then they can also extend it again. Right? And there is sometimes language in here that says they can actually cancel the contract. And I've had that just happen recently with a different project where they were buying a lot, and the developer was saying they couldn't get some of the approvals they were looking for, and they canceled contracts. So let's talk, what's the implication of this when the developer, extends things out by a certain amount of time, indefinite amount of time.
Well, it did happen to one of my clients who got so angry that they're no longer my client, even though it had no bearing on me whatsoever. But a developer, this was a few years ago, probably like 5 years ago, when the market was really starting to heat up in terms of condos. And so we bought one of the first units. They got their premium choice, and it was 3 years before they sold. And what we did was the developer had trouble getting labor, but also I think they also just kind of started to just dilly-dally. And so they kept sending out these amendments. And so I say to the buyer, okay, now's the opportunity. If you want to get out of here, you can. And then we would do a market analysis and realize that the market had gone up so much, it was better just to stay. And then they had to wait. After they owned, they had to wait a certain amount of time before they could sell it again. So they did that. First-time home buyers. So you have to stay in
over that. And it's, these ambiguous, when it's ambiguous, it's hard. And with these long closings, this is the thing, you're transferring here from, for work, or you're, you have a certain expectation you're going to have to be moved in by a certain length of time. It's pretty hard when you're planning to use this as your principal residence. As an investment property, maybe that's a different piece. But when this is going to be where you're going to be living, it's really helpful to have the confidence and the clarity of, like, I can be in here at this certain time and date. And that's where, again, working with a known developer that can really hopefully match their timelines, or at least they keep their reputation alive by doing their best to meet their obligations. It's important, but it's still
will
maybe
say,
not be the best purchase for some people.
I don't think this is a normal contract clause here. The purchaser acknowledges that the estimated date for completion of construction set out in the disclosure statement has been provided by the vendor as a matter of convenience only. Like, people are planning their life here. It's not meant to be legally binding.
Well, I would say that there's no such thing as a standard when it comes to new construction. We have standard language in our resale contract to purchase and sale, but developers will have their own developers contracts. It's always a good idea to have a lawyer review it, get lawyers' advice on these new construction contracts, really understand, that anything can and could go wrong, right? Murphy's Law can come to play here. So these are all important pieces.
Okay, so I think we have covered what we were going to cover today. Good job, buddy.
Excellent. So we've covered a lot, and we've also missed a lot because there's so much to this. And again, if you have questions, reach out to Jane or I. We are happy to discuss this. And when we are working with our own clients and sort of going through this in a bit of a series or steps, as these things come up, we're going to be talking with our clients. We're going to be talking through these things. And when there is something that's kind of to be alerted, we will bring it to our clients' attention. It's really impossible to cover this comprehensively.
Yeah, plus it's always different. We're nimble.
Exactly.
Okay, so everybody, I just want to say, don't forget to subscribe. We're on every Monday morning at 10 a.m. And you can check us out on YouTube or Facebook, or you can go to Andrew's site. Andrew, how do people get in touch with you?
You can reach me. Phone text is great, 250-360-6106 for more urgent matters. For general questions or less urgent matters, email me, please, info@andrewplank.com. And as always, check out my website. We host these shows here at my website as well as on Jane's. And there's additional information about each of us on our own individual websites as well.
Okay. And you can reach me. My name is Jane Johnston. My number is 250-744-0775. You can reach me at briarhillgroup@gmail.com. My website is briarhillgroup.com, and I host these videos at vancouverislandtime.com. And if you want, you can subscribe to Andrew's newsletter, my newsletter, or just check us out every Monday morning at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Right?
Great.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next Monday. Bye.
Thanks, Jane.